Hey guys, you're listening to episode 50 of the School of Intuition Soundcast, and I'm Natasha Che. The goal of this soundcast is to help you to live bigger, more empowered, and stronger and truer as a empathic light being, and to give you the tools to help elevate the consciousness of this planet as an empath. Because I think many of us empathic beings, we do not realize how powerful we are. A lot of times we kind of, disregard our gift of being an empath as something inconvenient or even a weakness. But the truth is, this is part of your mission and your purpose in this life, my friend. And this is a tool that being in tune with the environment, being in tune with other people's well-being is a huge beneficial tool for you to make a contribution in this world and help your own evolution of consciousness. So this morning, as I was walking outside doing my daily ritual morning, I usually, go out for a walk in the morning and in a certain meditative state and communicate with my higher self. So I got instructed by the source that I should talk about negativity with you today. So here we are. Let's talk about negative energy. And I think this is a very, very important topic. I think you will get something important out of this episode. So I hope you will pay attention, because this is something that bothers a lot of empaths. And this is something that makes your life very inconvenient as an empath. But also, this is where your power lies. Okay? So I want to tell you about a perspective on negativity or negative energy and how to transmute or transform the negative energy today. And I think this is going to be, in one sense, it's philosophical and, it's good to expand your mind awareness about energy, right? But on the other hand, this is very practical because it will help you to deal with the energy that you may feel, as an empath. We are bombarded with a lot of energy every day, right? So this is going to help you to handle those outside influences or internal influences differently. So I want to start by telling you an experience when I was maybe 9-10 years old. It may sound a little bit unrelated to the topic that we cover today, but you will see this is actually a good metaphor for the point that I want to make to you today. So I remember when I was 9 or 10 and my parents were not in the house one weekend. So I was in the house by myself. I was doing some chores, and I discovered somehow a family of roaches, cockroaches, in the cupboard of the kitchen. So I was extremely afraid of roaches, okay? And at the time I was in the house alone and I was completely scared to death when I discovered the roaches everywhere, coming out at every corner. I didn't know how many there were. It's a big family. There has to be hundreds of them, big and small. And so I saw them, crawling around, and I didn't know what to do. I was just so scared. And then I remembered we had a can of pesticide somewhere, right? So insect killers, and I dig it out of the garage or somewhere I don't remember. And I found that can and just sprayed the entire cupboard and the floor and the ceiling and the walls of the kitchen, everywhere. Just fill that space with the chemical. And as I was spraying this space, I was like, when I found that can, when I had that can in my hand, I was like, oh my God, this is going to save the day. And my life depended on this because I was so scared. So I sprayed the whole space, right? So I killed a bunch of roaches and eventually everything calmed down and the kitchen floor was littered with corpse of roaches. It was not a pretty scene, and it was very emotionally stirring, emotionally jarring experience that I remember till this day, obviously. So the reason I want to tell you this story is a lot of times, if you think about this, okay, that is my attitude towards the roaches is exactly the kind of attitude that most of us have towards negativity or any kind of negative energy. And the can of pesticide in my hand is the counterpart of that can. In the situation that we are interested in is something called positivity. Now, a lot of us, we take the positivity as a tool to kill the negativity. But what's beneath it? What's underlying that positivity, that veneer of positivity a lot of us, put on as we spray that on everything to kill the roaches. But what's underneath that? The underpinning tone is a sense of fear. And the fear is so ingrained. The fear is so subconscious that, most of the time we don't realize it. We thought we were just being positive, right? Just spray that thing everywhere. It's good for you. Just cover the space with positivity, and the negativity, has to be killed somehow. But as we are spraying the place with positivity, with our positive attitude, underneath it is enormous fear. This fear of being negative. This fear of, oh my God, let me not attract any negative energy into my life because there are going to be severe consequences if I, God forbid, be contaminated by some negative energy, right? So that is usually the attitude. It's not that dramatic, right? As I just, if I just speak this out, it sounds dramatic, but it's the kind of reasoning, the kind of mentality that a lot of us have towards negative energy. It's something to be killed. It's something that's not supposed to be seen in our tidy, normal space, elevated consciousness, full of light, right? So what I want to tell you is that is the way to go if you are really if your space is really infested by roaches. You know, a can of pesticide is very helpful. And that positivity is a kind of coping mechanism that a lot of us developed to be able to maintain balance, to be able to live, essentially, in a world that is sometimes filled with heaviness. And this is especially true if you're an empath, right? When you're an empathic being, you are constantly affected by the environment. And you are constantly being triggered, so to speak, left and right. So most of us, we had to find some kind of balance. We had to find some kind of coping mechanism, right? But the thing is, at some point, the evolution of your own being, the ever-expanding consciousness of your own being, will ask you to look deeper, to step out of that little can of pesticide that you hold in your hand as a protection. And this includes, things like rituals to expel negativity, the crystals and the smudges that you apply to your house, the spiritual jewelries you wear, all sorts of, we have all sorts of coping mechanism that essentially serve the same function as that negativity killer, right? And the other thing is, if you're an empath, right, a lot of teachers will tell you, well, when you feel some negative emotions, when you feel some disturbances in the universe, just remind yourself that this energy may not be yours. Okay, so that's a teaching that a lot of people will hear if you're an empath, and people tell you, what you feel is not entirely yours, so don't take it all on upon yourself, right? So again, that is a very useful teaching, very useful coping mechanism at some point on your journey when you do not have when you don't have enough empoweredness to handle the situation in a bigger way. So it's a coping mechanism from the space of that small human, from the space of that individual ego. And that is a perfectly fine coping mechanism. But here's the issue, okay? Here's the issue with the teaching that, this energy may not be yours. Because this is the intention of this teaching is that, okay, so as long as you realize this is not yours, you don't take it upon yourself, you kind of create this dissociation with the negativity, with the pain, then things will be easier to handle, right? And indeed, it is the case. It will be easier for your ego, from your ego's point of view, from your individual identity's point of view. When you realize, okay, this negativity is not mine, right? Then you kind of put a distance between what you call you, which is a isolated individual, and the rest. And the negativity now is part of the rest, is not you. It makes things a lot easier to manage. But the problem with this teaching is when you say, this negativity is not mine, this particular one is not mine, though I'm feeling it right now, that implies some other stuff, some other negativities or positivities, I don't know. They have to be yours. And what do you do with those then? When you say, okay, this energy is not mine, so therefore I don't need to deal with that, that implies, well, given another situation, if there's some energy that's not yours, some others has to be yours, right? So where do those come from? Are you the one that's supposed to be blamed for generating those negativity? Are you the one that's supposed to be in charge of negativity? Are you the one that's supposed to be the parent of those ugly children that you cannot get rid of because, hey, they're yours? You need to discipline your children. You need to manage these ugly kids, these ugly belongings, these furniture that are missing arms and legs. Those are yours, so you better manage them. And how are you going to do that? And what does this say about you for generating those negativities that are supposed to be yours? If this concept of yours and mine holds validity. So if we live in energy-wise, if we live in a world of yours, of you and me, if we carve out the space, if we carve out, in this intangible space, carve out from thin air these boundaries of energy space. Okay, this part of energy belongs to me, that part of energy belongs to you. If you think about it, it's kind of a ridiculous concept, don't you think? To claim ownership of energetic space. Because I can tell you what happens is energy, a lot of times it's space specific, right? So it's like you're moving through water. When you're moving through air, you think about, okay, this part, I talk about water because it's a denser material, so it's easier to visualize. So if you imagine you're walking in water, and some part of water is warm and other part of water is cold, right? So when you walk into the warm space, is that warmth yours or not? And when you walk into a different part of the water area, it's suddenly so much colder. So is that yours or not? I can tell you definitely it will affect your body temperature, right? Your body will react differently. But it's tricky to think about. It's not that helpful to think about, Is this texture of the space, the energetic texture of the space, whose is it? Who is supposed to be responsible for it? Right? So if you really dig into this teaching, which is a very common teaching that a lot of empathic beings actually use to manage their own well-being. Again, this totally valid. If that's where you are, if that is your truth, I don't see any problem with it, as long as it helps you to live your life better, right? But we are here to help you to expand. So I want to tell you about a different way to look at this, which I've already hinted at. Because there is when you look at consciousness from the space of individual human identity, there are a lot of things that you cannot make sense of because that box is too small. And at some point, it's just not going to help you anymore. Especially when you're an empath at this day and age, especially if you're the kind of empathic beings who are listening to this right now, you're probably called for bigger things. That's my guess. Okay? And I think that's a pretty good guess. So, and your role here as an empath is partly to help this world transform, to help this world see itself in a lighter, more expanded way. So that means you have to step outside of your own box first, right? So here's the thing. If you look at energy as pertaining to location, pertaining to space, but not pertaining to individuals, if you totally, setting aside this concept of property ownership, right? It will allow you to see this whole thing in a completely different way. And here's one thing I want to tell you is, what is negativity? Now, it may do a lot of different things to you. It may make you feel yucky, obviously, right? But essentially, any kind of negativity, it boils down to pain. Any kind of negativity is just a manifestation of human pain, of the underlying pain of being born into this world of heavy density. So if you look at things this way, however that pain manifests, in judgment, in anger, in sadness, in hostility, in, malicious actions, however it manifests itself, essentially, it is pain. So if we talk about how to transmute negative energy, we are talking about how do you deal with pain? Essentially, that's what it is. Whenever you feel any kind of negativity, whether it's triggered from inside of you or you get it from the environment that you walked into, it just because the water temperature is colder or warmer, that's why you get affected as an empath. Wherever that come from, when you realize that is essentially pain, that's already a step forward. Because when you realize it's pain, then it's like it is a kind of fundamental reality, fundamental essence of part of being human. It's actually a very pure, very simple thing. And when you look at it that way, a lot of the stories, the judgments, the why this, why not that, will get stripped out of this container of yours when you witness this whatever negativity you're witnessing, right? So that simplifies things. So let's establish that first. Whatever you feel, the negative stuff, however it manifests itself, it is pain. Now, first of all, let's recognize that. And the second thing is, wherever that pain comes from, whether it's yours or it's someone else's, we already talked about that concept. If you dig deeper, doesn't really hold a lot of solid truth in it, because here is the concept of we are all one actually becomes useful, because we are all one. That is true. And when you're talking about pain, there is this underlying human pain that is underpinning every existence of sentient beings. So the pain you feel, whether it comes from you, whether it's generated by your own stories and experiences and history, or whether it comes from someone else, and you just happen to feel it because you're in the environment, in the vicinity of it, what difference does it make? It's human pain. It's the same nature, and you're feeling it right now. So here is the invitation for you. Is when you see pain, when you feel that negativity, when you feel that pain, how about just recognize, okay, this is pain. It doesn't matter whose it is. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It's here now. It's here and you're feeling it. And the next thing is, obviously, the $1 million question is, okay, I'm here with this pain. I'm feeling this pain. What do I do about it? Do I spray the pesticide everywhere in the space to kill it? Or do I do something else? Is there a better way out? And I want to tell you there is indeed a better way than spraying the whole space with this veneer of positivity. Because that, essentially, it's the positivity, again, we talk about, a lot of times people use this as a tool to cover their fear. It's a tool to pacify the fear. And we have this underlying fear of pain. Now I want to ask you is why? Why are you afraid of pain? What is to be afraid of in pain? Now when you recognize it is part of existence, if you just sit, I want to invite you at this moment, sit in pain with me. I know that sounds strange, but when you're in that space and really look at pain not from the point of view of your small human, but from the point of view of the source that actually manifested that pain, that actually created that pain, because the source created everything, right? The sun and moon, the flower, the laughter and joy, as well as pain. When you look at things from the space of the source, what is to be afraid of? This is one of your creation. It is a fundamental aspect of existence. Now notice what I'm inviting you to do here is essentially setting aside your human judgment, your stories of what you've been told about pain and suffering, and just, sit with it. Look at it from the point of view of your higher self, from the point of view of the source where you came from. This is only part of the nature of existence. And that's all it is. Now, it may be heavy, it may be denser, may not be your preference. And all of those are true, by the way. Still, it is simply what it is. It's an aspect of existence. And here is the interesting thing, okay? As an empath, and especially for the type of empath that you are, which is you are called here as part of your journey in this lifetime to transmute and elevate the consciousness of this world. When you notice pain, not from a, oh my God, let's kill the roaches point of view. When you notice pain as the source, what happens is something very interesting. As soon as you notice it, without you actually doing anything, it starts to be transmuted into light. It's a very funny thing. You actually do not need to do anything about it. All you need to do is just to bear witness of it. And the more you're able to do that, if you can notice the pain that is underlying the negativity, whatever manifestation of that negativity is, if you notice it and you acknowledge its existence from the point of view as the source, it automatically starts being transmuted and being transformed. And automatically it starts the process of shifting that pain into the light and return it to the source. And that is the magic that you can perform as an empath. Now, why is it your empath specific kind of magic? Why does, other people don't have the magic? I'm not saying other people have other special magic that they have, but this is a magic that specifically you as a empathic badass that you possess. Why? And this is because It is because you see the pain. You are able to see the pain better than the average human being. Because of your empathic capacity, you actually notice it. When you are not able to notice, when you are not able to witness it and acknowledge it from the source, from the point of view of the source, it becomes your burden. It becomes your problem to solve. It becomes some kind of negative energy you need to get away from. But when you are able to witness this pain from the view of the source, this becomes your power. This becomes your magic. And the magic essentially comes from your ability to notice this pain, because you're so much more sensitive than the rest of the population. When you notice things that other people disregard and, shovel under the carpet and, hide in their shadows, but you notice them. An analogy of this will be, in a lot of ancient mythologies, there's this mythical creature called the Grim Reaper. It's usually portrayed as a very cheerful fellow, right? Carries as clothed in a dark, cloak, and carries this huge scythe that's supposed to, herd people, not herd people, but herd souls that are supposed to pass on to the next stage of the journey to, carry them into the light. That's essentially what it is. That's the role of the Grim Reaper, if you think about it. Now, there are all sorts of judgment and all sorts of emotions attached to this mythical figure when it's perceived from the human ego point of view, right? But essentially what this figure does, what this creature does, is its role is to identify the souls, the beings, the energies they're supposed to pass on to their next stage of the journey out of this world, to encourage them to please go on into this light channel and being transmuted into your next stage of the journey of your soul. That's what this figure does. It's a facilitator. It's a facilitator. This Grim Reaper is a facilitator of death. Facilitator of the transmutation of energy, right? As an empathic being, as an empathic badass who is living in this particular time in this world right now, your role is essentially the same. Your role is, when you see negativity, help transmute it into the light. Please, this way, follow the guidance, follow the tunnel. Now you can go that way into the light. Then everybody's happy. That's your role, essentially. Why are you able to carry out that role? Why other people are not able to do it is because, just like the Grim Reaper sees the souls they're supposed to pass on. Other people don't see it, right? Most people don't see ghosts. Same thing here. As an empathic being, you see the heavy energy. You see the pain that other people don't see. And when you're able to identify it, when you notice it, when you witness it, as the source, you essentially are facilitating that pain to move on, to move to the next stage of their journey, to be transmuted into the light, to return to the source. And that is exactly how elevate the consciousness of this planet. Now, we talked about pain. We talked about witnessing the pain. I want to give you an example of a specific situation, okay? It may help ground this. So, But this kind of thing really happens every day to me. So I was, sitting in a cafe. I was typing on my computer, working on some things. And I just suddenly started feeling this hopelessness, this despair in my body. And suddenly it looks like, I'm not even interested in what I'm doing. Why do I even bother? There's this desperation, this heaviness, and this disappointment. It's, energetic stuff, harder to put into words. But I started feeling this. Now, at that point, if you go with the usual, teachings, tools that a lot of people that advise you to do as an empath, then I may tell myself, this is not mine. This is not mine, block it off, and go on with my own merry way and keep doing what I'm doing, right? But the thing is, to me, that's not particularly helpful. So I noticed this thing, right? Obviously, the ego always has this tendency of whatever comes into its space, it identifies it as its own, right? It's like someone kicks a soccer ball into your front yard, and you look out the window and see a ball in your yard, and it's like, that's my ball. It's in my yard now. It's mine. That's what your ego would tend to do is, okay, it's mine. Let me deal with this. It's mine. Why did I generate this? It comes up with a bunch of stories. Right? But what I did is essentially, I was like, okay, well, I guess you're here. Hi. Hello. Nice to see you. And I noticed that pain. And I noticed how heavy it is. And I noticed that human suffering associated with it. And then I give it my compassion. And then I say, I didn't verbally say this, but this is a silent conversation, essentially. I see you, I get it, I understand. I see you as who you are, I respect you, I acknowledge you. I respect what you've been through. It's a lot. It's very heavy. And I respect that. And I basically just sit there and have this conversation, this energetic conversation with this negativity. And that's all I did. And then I noticed it started shifting. The edges started softening, and it started to be transmuted, and it started to be shifted into something else. It started to be shifted into something more neutral that doesn't carry such a emotional force with it. It doesn't carry such a aggressive emotional undertone with it. Now, this is something that I encourage you to look into. If you are ready, if this is something that you feel called to do, is another way to actually transmute that heavy energy, to transmute that negativity as a empathic being who is clear about who he and she is, who is clear about your mission in the world, and who is clear about who you are, and who is confident about your ability for compassion, for love, for trust. If that's who you are, that's how you deal with pain. Okay? And by the way, if you look at your past experience, I also want to add this, okay? The reason that you are equipped to actually witness this pain from an authentic, genuine point of view is because as an empathic being, you've been through a lot. All your past pains and sufferings are essentially equipping you to do this, to witness the pain, to say, I see you, I understand what you've been through, I understand this is heavy, and I respect that. When you say that, better from a genuine, authentic point of view, right? And you're able to be genuine in that energetic exchange because that is actually true. You've been through pain. You understand what it is. You've been through a lot. Everybody listening at this moment, you have been through a whole lot. You've been through a ton of shit. You know what this is. Okay? So if you haven't been through all that, if life hasn't given you all those gifts of suffering, then you wouldn't have been able to do this. I wouldn't have been able to do this. To sit with the pain, to say from very honest, authentic standpoint that I understand you, I get where you are. I wouldn't have been able to say that if I haven't had my own personal experiences of pain and suffering, right? So whatever you're going through, if you're going through a lot of personal pain right now, just know, please do realize this is part of how your gift is born. If you're going through a lot of pain and suffering right now, that is something. There is a purpose to it. And this is going to help you, to help yourself, to help the world going forward as an enlightened, empathic light being. Okay? So, that's all for today. And I thank you for being part of this empathic badass tribe. And I thank you for making this soundcast a part of your weekly routine and for sharing this with your friends and your families and whoever may need this. Pass this on, take a screenshot of the episode and send it to someone who this may help. Okay? And I will talk to you next time.